Hey guys, coming another classic movie for you guys. Now, this movie reviewing, I was very hesitant about watching this one because while I was really looking forward to this movie, there was a part of me that wasn't looking forward to this movie, and I'll explain why once I get into it. But let's just get into what the movie is. That movie is the 1978 romantic drama classic Days of Heaven. I was very much looking forward to this movie, but the reason I wasn't looking forward to this movie is because it is Terrence Malick, and as you guys know, I watched Knight of Cups, and I wasn't very fond of that film. From a technical aspect, I love everything, but the story and the acting, I thought was just very underutilized because it was a very style over substance kind of film. I just think that really didn't work. And I heard a lot of Terrence Malick's films are very much like Knight of Cups. So I was a bit worried going into this movie. I really didn't know what I was gonna get, if this movie was gonna be that great, because I heard he's a great director. But I also heard that if you've seen any of his movies, you've seen what his style is, and I was really worried that Days of Heaven was going to very much be like Knight of Cups. Not that Knight of Cups didn't work for me, I just think that it was a very underutilized film, and I was hoping that Days of Heaven wouldn't be as underutilized because it's widely regarded as one of Terrence Malick's masterpiece, and I'm very happy to say that I very much stand by that statement. I absolutely love Days of Heaven. It is a absolute masterpiece, but not in the way you might think. I'll talk about really why I love this film as much as I do, because there are going to be a lot of people that are going to ask me things, and I'll get into that, but let's get to the plot of Days of Heaven, because the plot is so interesting. I really do love the plot here. Basically, we focus on the story of, these two people. We have Bill and Abby, and basically they have to end up relocating. Bill and Abby, they're from Chicago, and basically after Bill does something in Chicago, I'm not going to spoil what he does because very early in the movie, I just don't want to say it, but he ends up doing something in Chicago that makes him have to relocate to Texas Panhandle, and it takes place in 1916, by the way, and basically with his girlfriend Abby and his younger sister Linda, who actually narrates the entire movie, and the movie is actually told through her eyes, where basically they decide that they're going to involve themselves in like farm cropping and kind of that whole thing, but they realize that the farmer is dying, played by Sam Shepard. He is dying very slowly, he's getting a sickness, and Bill comes up with this idea that the two of them are going to pretend to be brother and sister in order for Abby to marry the farmer so they can get some of his finances and not, basically be able to no longer be in poverty. And that basically is the rough plot of Days of Heaven. That's the best way I can say it. Eventually, she kind of starts to become attracted to him, but that basically is the plot of Days of Heaven. I think that's really all I'm going to say because I don't really want to spoil anything else that happens in this movie because this is actually a very spoil-heavy film, but again, not in the way you may think, and especially when talking about performances, because when it comes to acting, this movie is not really relied on acting. I'll talk about what I mean by that once I jump into that. Not to say that all three of these actors aren't great, because I think they all really do a great job. Richard Gere is fantastic as a character of Bill. I absolutely love his character. He's kind of an anti-hero, he's willing to cross some lines to do some things that, when you look at it, might be unjust, but you understand why he's doing these things, especially something he does very early in the beginning of the film. It's interesting to see this character, but he's a very interesting character as well because he wants to do whatever he can to get out of poverty, and I think he does that very well. Really did love what he did in the movie. He definitely was very interesting, and his character overall, I really did find myself connecting to. The way that he wants to get out of the situation, the desperation in his character, just everything he wants to do to be able to get out of this situation. How, this is really just, he wants to get out of this at all costs, and even if he has to go to these extreme lengths, he will do whatever he can to get out of poverty, and I think he just did a very good job. Really love what his character did here. He definitely was really great. Brooke Adams is very good as Abby. Really liked her character as well, especially once the whole storyline with the farmer starts and things like that. But I think by far, out of the three actors, the best was Sam Shepard as the farmer. I mean, everything about him was incredible. He just did an incredible job in this movie. There's so many things I loved about his character, but I'm not really going to talk about why the actors are so good in this movie. I'll get to that when I get into the cinematography, but Linda Manz as Linda does a fantastic job as well narrating this entire movie. There's something very poetic about the way she speaks and the things she says. I mean, it's just so interesting to see this film through her eyes, and they do a really good job with that because we see it through her eyes, we see everything that unfolds, and she plays a very good character. You know, she's keenly aware of what's going on. She's never directly involved with this situation. Well, she is kind of towards the end of the movie, but a lot of this she's seeing from the outside, and she's experiencing a lot of it, but she's not a huge part of it. She's just kind of experiencing and seeing it, and she's telling the movie through her eyes. Now, that was very cool the way they did that, because you would assume that they'd take, you know, Richard Gere or Sam Shepard and tell it through their eyes, but no, they take his little sister, and it's actually a lot more interesting. I like the way they did that. Thought that definitely was very interesting and really added to the film. I thought it was really cool they did that. Not really something I expected them to do, but I thought that was definitely really cool, and I really did enjoy that overall. But to tell you guys the truth, this movie is not really based on acting. As good as the acting is, really the reason this movie is so good is the directing, the writing, and the visuals. Because, let me just say right off the bat, the reason this movie works so well is not because of acting or scripts. This movie is, I think, the perfect example of visual storytelling. That is exactly what this movie is, and that is exactly what I think Terrence Malick wanted to be. His tone here is kind of low-key, honestly. Days of Heaven is a pretty good title because a lot of this movie feels like there's not a ton of stuff going on. Well, that's because, again, this movie is really visual storytelling. I mean, this is a movie where it's a lot of expressional acting. Like, a lot of it is expressions on their face or just ways they react or things you see in the film. It's not really all these altercations. You know, you're expecting certain things to happen in the movie, and they do go down, but some of it we see and some of it we don't. And that's something I thought Terrence Malick directed very well here. I really do love his tone of this film, and he just does a very good job of, you know, showing, you know, this tone and everything. Again, it feels like kind of pleasant. Something about it, you know, it is very heaven-like, and it's very, people have said it's dreamlike. I would agree that it's very dreamlike. And when I say dreamlike, it's like a paradise, pretty much. This farmland is a place where nothing bad is really happening. Everything's kind of good. This is like a good place for them, and I think he did a very good job with that. I really did love his directing here. He really was fantastic, and I thought his directing was great. The story in general was so interesting. I really got into the story, I have to say. When the movie was going on, I'm like, there's not a ton of stuff going on in this movie, but then I realized really that was the idea, is that there's not supposed to be a ton of stuff going on here. This is supposed to be definitely a more low-key film. This is supposed to be a more you know, different type of film. That's something I thought they did really well here, because you have a you know, a script here that could be very cliched. I mean, it doesn't get more cliche than a love triangle, but it's not exactly a love triangle. It's more about jealousy, and there's so many themes in this movie about jealousy and desperation and poverty and just love in general, and just things you'll do just to, you know, how far you'll go for certain things and the lengths that you'll go, and, you know, things like rage and bitterness and things like that. There's so many themes of that in this movie, and they're all captured so well. Of course, these are themes we've seen before, but they're captured so well in this movie. I think Terrence Malick did an incredible job writing this movie. The story here was just so interesting, and I really did love that. And a lot of this movie, like I said, is visual storytelling, and you know, I think just the writing here, so interesting, absolutely loved it. But again, that's not the thing that makes this movie. The thing that really makes this movie, by far, is the cinematography. Not only is the cinematography the thing that makes this movie, it's also widely considered the greatest cinematography of all time. I believe it won an Oscar. It better have won an Oscar, because this movie is definitely high up there. I don't know if I consider it the greatest, but it definitely is very high up there. There is something just immaculate about the cinematography. You are transported into this world. This is a movie where you can't help but look away. I mean, even when there wasn't a ton going on, you can't help but look at the screen, because everything that's going on is so interesting. The farmland, there's so much detail just put into little things like a farmland or crops or things like that. And there are a lot of metaphorical things done through just visuals, such as a fire at the end of the movie and showing this quiet little peaceful town and things like that. It's very well shot, and just, it's technically, you know, masterful, but that's kind of the point with this movie. It's supposed to be a visual film, and they did that really well. And even the actors here really had a great deal of stuff to work with, because they have a movie here where they are saying stuff. What they're saying isn't as important as what we're seeing. What we're seeing is a lot more important. The dialogue, yes, of course, is important, but the expressions on the characters and the things we see around them represent something. And there are some things that I still don't get. this is definitely a movie they're going to want to watch back a second time, and I really do recommend you do that, but cinematography here looks incredible. Absolutely love that. Some of the greatest I've ever seen. Just, there's so many good shots in this movie, and I really want to get the Criterion. I was very hesitant about getting it because I didn't know if I was really going to like this movie, but I'm definitely getting the Criterion after watching this. I highly recommend you guys do, and I haven't seen many movies, honestly, as good cinematography as Days of Heaven. There are obviously great cinematography out there, but there's nothing quite like Days of Heaven does it. I mean, there's so many scenes that are just dimly shot, and so many scenes are just great farmland, but it never comes across as style over substance. It comes across as very metaphoric and very much telling a story in the way that the dialogue isn't, and I think it was just a really cool idea the way they did that. I've never really seen a movie do it in quite the way this does, and the thing I liked about this is, unlike Knight of Cups, this does have actual dialogue. It's not just, the character of Linda narrating the entire time. No, I wouldn't like that if it was like that. I think the movie would be very boring. I would not enjoy that, and I'm glad that the movie is not like that, because that was my exact problem with Knight of Cups, and I like that this movie is not at all like that. I thought that definitely was a lot better that they didn't do that, and like I said, the cinematography absolutely makes this film by far. I mean, definitely, if you did ask me what really is the best thing about this film, by far, the cinematography is just immaculate. It's incredible. Some of the best I've ever seen by far. But the score here as well, I think, really propels the entire story. I mean, there's a fantastic, just mysterious score that I'm sure you've heard before. If you guys have ever seen The Curious Case of Benjamin Button teaser trailer, that score actually was in this movie. That was the original, I believe that was the original score of this movie, and it's played throughout the movie. It's so mysterious, it's so just compelling, and it just sucks you in, really. The second you hear it, it just sounds so mysterious, and so just like, peaceful. There's just something so peaceful and heaven-like about it, and I absolutely love it. I thought it was so well done. I think they did that so well, and the editing here as well. This movie, like I said, is very masterfully edited in the sense that there are brief moments in this movie where the characters feel at peace, and then something will just happen out of nowhere, especially the third act of this movie. The climax of this movie is one of the most insane things I've seen because of how calm the rest of the movie is. I mean, a lot of this movie is very resolute and very calm. There's stuff going on, but we're not really seeing it. And then the third act happens, and all this crazy stuff happens, and I absolutely love it. I think it was very well handled the way they did that. Thought it was very well done, and I'm definitely going to talk about that in the spoilers, but I think really the editing was really well done here. The movie's only 94 minutes, and it really does fly by. I heard there were a lot of reshoots and things like that, but I really didn't notice that. I think, honestly, it made it better that there were some things that we didn't see, because we are to assume that they happened by the look on the character's face, but we, of course, this was something that Linda didn't experience. If Linda didn't experience it, or Linda wasn't present in this scene, or she didn't hear about it, then it's not really important. I mean, it's important, but we're just not going to see it, and that's something I think they did very well, because it's all through her perspective. This is very much reminded me of a 1970s version of the movie Room. The movie Room that came out last year, all told through, Jack's eyes and everything, told through Jacob Tremblay's eyes, and this movie's very similar to that, in the sense that what we see through her eyes is completely her eyes, and I thought that was definitely well done. I definitely really did love that, and, all the scenes, she's definitely a lot older than Jack, so she's keenly aware of what's going on, you can definitely tell, but there's just a lot of things that she knows that we don't see, because she didn't see the way they played out, or the way they escalated, and I think that's something they did very well here, and it was a very small choice, but just something I think they did very, very well. Also, I forgot to say, the score is done by Ennio Morricone, and he's regarded as, one of the greatest composers in film history. Really did a great job here, and this movie was nominated for a couple things. Like I said, it definitely was nominated for Best Cinematography. I believe it won Best Cinematography at the Oscars. It better have, because, like I said, the cinematography is just immaculate here, and it's gotten a lot of stuff on the AFI Film Institute. It was nominated for 100 Years, 100 Movies. It didn't win, but it was nominated, and that's something I really do appreciate. But now, guys, I do want to jump into spoilers, because there really is a lot to talk about when it comes to spoilers and regards to that. So if you guys haven't seen Days of Heaven, go watch it. It's not for everyone. I'm going to tell you guys right off the bat, if you don't like movies where you don't see a lot going on, you're not going to like this movie till the third act. The third act, I think, is what most people are going to love. If you are not someone that likes these kind of different kinds of movies like I do, where style is different and things like that, then you're not going to like this movie. I'll tell you guys that right off the bat. In fact, for the first act of this movie, I was like, I don't know, but then I really realized what they were trying to do, and I'll talk about that really in the spoilers, and then a little bit of analysis as well. But again, it's not really for everyone. But if you guys do want to see this movie, I'm going to put the spoiler tag right here. I'm also going to go into a bit of an analysis. So if you guys don't want to know, if you guys haven't seen Days of Heaven, get the Criterion, rent it on Amazon. I rented it on Amazon. Do what you have to do. Just check it out. It's a fantastic movie, and I highly recommend you check it out. But now let's jump into spoilers. So going into this, I'm like, okay, this is going to be kind of a low-key film. There are things that are going to happen, but we're just not going to hear about it. But damn, does that change in the third act, because there's so much that goes down in the third act, metaphorically and, actual reality. And I think that was something they did very well, is there, especially that fire. Let's talk about that fire, because the fire that's going on there, I think, really is kind of a metaphor to the climax, really. That things are about to get really intense, and, the whole movie, it's just rising action. Things are building and building and building, especially the farmer, who, honestly, I feel the worst for, because he knew what was going on. He found out way too late, and it really does suck, but the fire that happens, that really, I think, is when they say that there's no more, they can no longer keep this secret, because a big part of the movie, I think, is about keeping secrets, and how long a secret can stay hidden, which we've seen in this movie, that the secret can clearly, not stay hidden, because eventually the farmer does in fact find out, and the second that he's found out and he pointed the gun at her, I'm like, she's not gonna die, that's not actually gonna happen. But then, of course, him and Bill have that crazy altercation where he's got the gun, and then Bill stabs him with a screwdriver, and you knew he was gonna do that, because, very early on in the movie, of course, he had to kill his boss. He had to kill his boss, literally kill him in the steel mill and everything, and of course, I was thinking, if he is capable of doing that, he will very well kill the farmer, and that's exactly what he ends up doing, again, just because he's desperate. And that's something I think they should very well here. You're not, you sympathize with Bill and you understand where he's come from, but at the same time you feel bad for the farmer. But you also understand that Bill had to do this because he's just desperate. He's desperate to get the fortune, he's desperate to come out of poverty, and he's gonna get what he wants from the farmer. And and in the end, unfortunately, he doesn't get. For a little while they do. They have those nice peaceful moments, which again, I think is something that this movie just does very well, is showing those just random moments of them just having fun, interacting, wishing they had a better life, thinking that finally things are going to get good and that maybe they will actually become rich. But then, of course, they are in fact ambushed by the foreman and police. They pursue, they eventually find them. You knew Bill was going to be killed after what he did. It's kind of just, you can't really come back from that. So Bill unfortunately is killed, and why does the movie end depressing? Abby ends up inheriting the family's money, Linda goes to a boarding school, but I do like the way that Linda ends up running away from school with a friend, and that way I think we're basically led to believe that she was telling this entire story to that friend, because we never really know who she was narrating the story to, but I think I kind of got it as she's starting over. This is her fresh chance to start over. She's now, getting to have that life that she wanted. She's away from the farmland, she's away from all the poverty, she's in boarding school, and she's now able to start over. Abby's now going to be in World War I. This is now Linda's chance to be on her own and start over, and basically, I think, basically not tarnish her family name. She's going to redeem her family name, definitely. I think she's definitely going to try to do that, and I think we definitely do get the sense that by the end of this movie. I really did love that, and going just a bit into my analysis, what I really think this movie is about when it comes down to it is desperation and jealousy. That's what this movie's all about. Jealousy in the sense of the farmer and what he wants. Jealousy in the sense of Bill and how jealous he is of the farmer and everything that he has, and as well as that entire family and everyone else they're living with, is kind of very rich. And also jealousy in the sense of the love triangle, in the sense that these two men both very much would like Abby. What I love is that it's never a full-fledged triangle. You can tell it's going on, but they're never really fighting for Abby's affections. It's more that the farmer can just tell there's something going on, because a lot of the movie, he thinks that Bill and Abby are just siblings. You knew they wouldn't be able to keep that charade up for that long, and eventually when he does find out, of course, there's a lot of tension that escalates there, and I think that was definitely very well handled. But then as far as, the desperation part, that part's pretty simple. Is this Bill's desperation to get him out of poverty, as well as Abby's desperation, the things that they're going to do for each other, and then I think the farmer's desperation to figure out what's going on. He is just determined. When he finds out, they're an amazing scene, and this is why I think Sam Shepard did the best job, is that amazing scene where he looks through that window. You can just see the look in his face. It's not one of betrayal and hurt, it's one of determination. He knows there's something going on. He's destined to find out what it is, and just the lengths that he went to find out, I absolutely loved the way that was done, and really, that's why this movie is just so great, because of that visual storytelling, because of the way they use things like the fire, things like, even I'd say the gun battle, I mean, really represents something. That's representing the end of this. This is the end of Linda getting to live this life. This is Linda having to live a new life and everything. I think they showed that very well. Really did love that. There's so much more put in this movie that I'm trying to think about. I'm sure I'll have a different... I think this is one of those movies where I'm going to watch it back and maybe like, no, guys, it was completely wrong. I could definitely see that happening, but for right now, that's what I really do think about this movie, and... that's why I say that's really my interpretation of it. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm not, maybe, maybe I'm right, I don't know. Of course, let me know what your interpretation is of the film, because I'd love to hear about it. It's not a film I think a lot of people know about, but a lot of people who know Terrence Malick, I'm sure, have seen this movie. So if you guys, have a theory that I didn't say, just comment it down below. Love to hear your thoughts, and let's just jump into my rating and then end the review. So overall, guys, Days of Heaven is a cinematic masterpiece in every sense. It's not really like a lot of movies I've seen before. Like I said, it's not really for everyone, but Days of Heaven is just, it was so much better than I thought it was going to be. I loved it so much more. It's by far the best classic movie I've watched so far, and I am definitely going to give Days of Heaven a 5 out of 5 or an A+, without a doubt. Again, this movie is not for everyone. It's very much visual storytelling. I think a lot of people are going to be a little bit bored by this movie, but it is a movie where if you really want to look deep into a movie and you really want to dissect a film, this is really the film for you. Highly recommend you check it out. It's very different, it's very well done, and I absolutely loved every minute of it, and I can't wait to see more Terrence Malick's films, as this classic movie series goes on. So overall, guys, in my review, Days of Heaven, let me know what you guys thought of this movie you have seen. Love to hear your thoughts on it, especially with my analysis and everything. Again, let me know your interpretation is, and I will see you guys in my next show, which will be for Stranger Things, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.